dirtiest city in America to one of the most livable. Chattanooga's turnaround story is well known. Part of the city's renaissance has involved developers breathing new life into old buildings.
But many of those old buildings turned out to be full of airborne poison. NewsChannel 9's Kelsey Bagwell began digging into the problem when she first brought us the story of asbestos discovered in the downtown library back in August. Kelsey, what have you learned since then?
Calvin, Latricia, since then, I've learned more about the effects of ingesting that poison from a man who is now paying with his life. That man is Ray Albright, and you may remember his name. He shaped legislation for years as a vital member of Chattanooga's delegation in the Tennessee General Assembly. But his exposure to asbestos in the workplace now leaves him struggling to fill his lungs. Former Senator Ray Albright's 26-year run as a Tennessee legislator came to a close in 1994.
I planned my life, my wife and I did, to have a good life, a life that we wouldn't have any problems. It just don't work out.
In 1953, Albright took a job at Combustion Engineering to provide for his growing family. For 19 years, he made covers for boilers by cutting steel with a bandsaw, a process that spewed deadly dust into the air.
It was so thick you couldn't see 10 feet in front of you hardly.
Albright had no idea that thick dust contained asbestos. He says the other workers didn't either. They didn't even know what asbestos was. But 40 years later, Albright was diagnosed with mesothelioma, a type of cancer in the lungs.
Asbestos was the cause of this, and you don't know it. I'm 40 years later before you find out what you were exposed to was extremely dangerous.
You can hear the struggle to speak, to breathe in his voice. Albright believes the management at Combustion knew about the dangers of asbestos, and there's reason to believe he's right. The U.S. Department of Labor has fined other companies millions of dollars for exposing workers without protection. Albright is one of hundreds of clients who have sued Combustion and others. He's represented by attorney Jimmy Rogers.
They're in the enjoyment of their retirement of their life and enjoying their grandkids and traveling, or that's their ideas typically. And they get hit with that kind of a diagnosis.
Albright isn't alone. Chattanooga's former life as a manufacturing city has resulted in hundreds of cases like his.
There was just a large concentration of industrial job sites.
But asbestos wasn't just a problem on the assembly line. For decades, it was also used to insulate and fireproof buildings. Most of the city's older structures have it, according to removal expert David Bayshore.
Pretty much from let's say the 20s through the 70s, almost all the buildings had some kind of asbestos in them, almost always.
When intact, asbestos isn't a hazard, but when it's broken into dust, like during a renovation, it becomes dangerous. Bayshore's job is to remove the asbestos before renovations begin. Working on Chattanooga's buildings keeps him busy.
Chattanooga's an older city, so older cities are going to have higher amounts of asbestos present.
There are now strict rules from the Environmental Protection Agency about asbestos, but for many already diagnosed, it's decades too late. Albright admits he can't properly say the name of the disease that's taking his life.
If I stay around long enough, I'll learn to pronounce that thing.
He's filed lawsuits to hold his former employers accountable for cutting short the good life he planned for himself many years ago.
There's no cure for what I have, and you're going to die. It's just a matter of time.
Former Senator Albright's lawsuit is still pending. He says his doctor estimates he has about 6 more months to live. Latricia.
Kelsey, thank you. As we mentioned in the story, the Chattanooga Public Library is currently removing the asbestos from all 4 floors of their downtown location.